Please join me as we say the words printed in our orders of service to affirm that our chalice has already been lighted. We gathered this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. That was beautiful, by the way. Thank you so much. I'd like to open this morning with words by Paul Martin. He is a Master of Divinity poet with writings that have appeared in Spiritus, Cross Currents, and The Mennonite. This is called Homeowners. Black to white, warm to cold, crows in frosty air are simply there. Their attitude is in your face because your face occupies their space and nothing more. First and foremost, to the last, least and always, crows claim the world like a diamond claims its setting. They are strident easily, without effort, overcoming you incidentally because you happen to be in their way. Crows know one thing, what it is to be under the mothering sun, without question, without answer, without pause, with no cessation or respite or compromise from crowness, till their little bodies wither like dry leaves on the earth they crown by dominating, with complete submission. More than unacknowledged eagles, crows flourish despite how little you or I care, charged with a ferocity that is just as fierce as it must be and exceeds those requirements slightly, because this is what crows have always done under the dying sun, consumed unknowingly by doing everything they can to be, flinging pointed sound shafts, stinging as the wind that carries them, uninhibited revelry heard at a distance under a gray sky, like brilliant fish leaping from the water at a distance, hard to make out, or flung innocently as light, even when their joy singes antagonism, because at times you and I stand far too close and in the way. Crows wholly own the only knowable and shout it from our rooftops. They own those too. For me, these words spotlight the fact that we all own and are owned by this wonderful world that we inhabit with so many others. We are owned and we own. We are interconnected, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, or whether we behave in a way that is awake and aware or not. Crows claim their rightful spot in the world. They have never had the illusion that they are the center of the universe, the pinnacle of achievement, and therefore have never exhibited the hubris that comes from that completely false notion. Crows may have hubris, but it's of the strutting their stuff kind, not the my stuff is the best stuff kind. As we relax our bodies, so you might want to put your feet on the floor, you might want to close your eyes or focus on something in the distance. As we relax our bodies, release our spirits in wonder, and free our minds from thoughts of us and them, either or, of our opinions of who is intelligent and deserving, who is lesser and therefore undeserving, of what we think we understand about the cosmos, about ourselves, about others in this room, in this community, and in the global community. Our long-held and cherished and subconscious attitudes of entitlement, of having accomplished what we have by our own effort, rather than mostly by grace. Let us consider the words of Rumi. He said, "Be crumbled, so wild flowers will come up where you are. You have been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender." I'm speaking today on the seventh principle, our interdependence in the web of existence. But as I thought about it, respect didn't seem quite enough or exactly what we're talking about with that seventh principle. As I was walking with my dog Taz by the lake, as we do almost every day, I was thinking about speaking today and about the intersection of respect, reverence, and responsibility, when, as happens quite often, the universe showed me a lesson right there in the beauty of the landscape. I am always curious about the amount of trash in the park, on the grassy areas of the pier, and in the water at Canandaigua Lake. It would seem that some of the very same people that come to gaze at the lake while drinking their morning coffee, or come to hear the calls of birds and watch the flight of the great blue herons while they eat their lunch, throw their trash out the window when they leave. What is that disconnect about? They seem to hold the beauty of the area in reverence and want to connect to it, and yet feel no respect, seemingly, or responsibility to care for it, or to care about others who come to enjoy its beauty too. Then I realized something that I think is very important to understanding how the 3 R's of respect, reverence, and responsibility inform each other, and when observed in relationship with one another, cause us to behave in accordance with our deepest held values. I noticed that the trash was fast food wrappers, plastic soda containers, beer cans, cigarette packs, and junk food bags that held potato chips or candy. And then I realized something else. I don't believe I've ever seen an empty kombucha bottle. Does everybody know what kombucha is? This fermented drink, nasty, supposed to be really good for you. I've never seen an empty kombucha bottle or tofu wrapper, or any wrapper that indicated the product was organic, GMO-free, had been produced without cruelty, or was something very healthy for you. And I had this aha moment. People who respect themselves enough to try to care for their own bodies in the best way they currently know how, tend to have respect for the earth and for all other beings. So just as we cannot love another truly until we love ourselves, I think we cannot respect other people, animals, and the earth until we first really respect ourselves. One source I Googled defines respect as a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. But as you use, we believe that just because another exists, they deserve respect. Another source describes respect as deference to a right, privileged person, or someone or something considered to have certain rights or privileges, and proper acceptance or courtesy, or acknowledgement. Again, as you use, we espouse the belief that the earth and all of her inhabitants have certain rights or privileges simply because they exist just as we do. Merriam-Webster defines respect as a feeling or understanding that someone or something is important, serious, etc., and should be treated in an appropriate way, and a particular way of thinking about or looking at something. I especially like the last thought, a particular way of thinking about or looking at something. I actually think that living a life of respect is a particular way of thinking about or looking at everything. So how are respect and reverence connected? The Free Dictionary defines reverence as a feeling of profound awe and respect and often love, veneration. Dictionary.com defines it as a feeling or attitude of deep respect, tinged with awe, veneration, and the outward manifestation of this feeling. So it seems that deep respect, which I believe is what our seventh principle is calling us to practice, is a form of reverence, awe, and veneration that we're called to be mindful of in every moment. Being mindful in every moment brings us to a place of questioning what our responsibility is when we hold the interconnected web in reverence or deep respect. Merriam-Webster defines responsibility as the state of being the person who has caused something to happen or something you should do because it is morally right. Dictionary.com defines responsibility as the state or fact of being responsible, answerable, or accountable for something within one's power, control, or management. Within one's power, control, or management. I think implicit in the idea of our seventh principle is our accountability for the state of the world, our answerability to future generations of what we have left for them, and our answerability to our own hearts as to why we left certain things undone or assigned them to another or to the experts because we were too busy, too tired, overwhelmed, cynical, or apathetic. In the face of the enormous challenges to our interconnected web, it is easy to feel all of these things and to allow ourselves to believe that we are only one person and there's nothing within our individual power that we can do that will make any difference at all in the whole scheme of things. There is often that feeling that when we rid the world of one problem, 10 others sprout up. So what's the point? Imagine, though, if gardeners felt that way about weeds, if they believed they shouldn't pull that first weed because others will only grow. We would be in a sorry pickle then, overrun with weeds and our food supply choked off. And I really didn't mean that as a pun. I didn't realize it till I read it over this morning. It was probably what Helen Keller's was thinking in answer to her own heart's question about what good she could do. She said, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something that I can do. So, where do we begin with the something that we each can do? I think we begin with the heart of the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. If we each only committed to that principle every day, we would be living into our seventh principle in a powerful, potent, and inspiring way. Imagine if each of us, for only this week until we meet again, vowed to try to do no harm. We would not be successful because that would mean we had achieved perfection for the entire week. And while, as Unitarians, we are close to perfect, even we can't attain that goal. But our commitment to the effort of doing no harm would result in an enormous reduction of suffering and an incalculable amount of happiness and ease. So how do we live into doing no harm? That seems like an enormous obligation and an overwhelming way to approach each day. And it is. My mentor, Zoe Weil, the founder and president of the Institute for Humane Education, wrote a book called Most Good, Harm, which is the basis of the master's degrees that the Institute offers and of an online course that I teach, which gives people the tools to live their lives according to their deepest held values of justice, compassion, dignity for all, an end to suffering for human and non-human animals, and it gives people the information they need to become educators, advocates, and protectors of those who cannot protect or advocate for themselves. Notice I said the book's called Most Good, Least Harm. It's not all good, no harm. It is not possible to live a life causing no harm, some of which we'll never even know about. But it is possible to commit to living a life that brings action, vibrancy, and meaning to our seventh principle by asking for more than just an attitude or intention on our part. Doing no harm is not a passive lifestyle. It is a lifestyle that requires us to be educated, to be aware, to pay attention, to have great courage in the face of challenge, hostility, and ridicule. It requires a commitment to living with integrity, integrating all the parts of ourselves toward creating a world in which all are happy, safe, and free to live their own very precious lives. It is a lifestyle that requires us to forgo that chocolate that was harvested by slaves, living in abominable conditions and in fear every day of their lives. It does not, thankfully, require us to give up chocolate. Simply to be aware of its origin and to think about those other lives and our direct effect on them, and then choose the product that is a win for everyone. It is a lifestyle that requires us to speak up when someone tells a misogynistic joke, or a joke poking fun at, disrespecting, or mocking gays, Latinos, Christians, atheists, other religions, ethnicities, or national origins. It is not a lifestyle that calls us to be humorless, but instead to find our humor in those things that life presents every day that are truly funny, rather than at the expense of others. Doing no harm requires us to call out those who are cruel and bullying, whether that be in the classroom, in the media, with our policymakers, or on the factory farm. It requires us to take a stand by the way we spend our dollars, either voting for the way things are and systems that are broken, or voting for a different, kinder, more just and equitable world that is free of fear. It requires us to expand our circle of compassion from our own family friends to the larger community and finally to the global community. It asks of us to be the voice for the earth and to plead her case when she is plundered, desecrated, disrespected, and commodified. It is a commitment to not turning away from hard questions, such is why we love and revere our dogs and cats and call ourselves animal lovers, when in the same hour of pampering them, we sit down to a meal made with ingredients that have caused unspeakable suffering. A life of deep inquiry into our own attitudes, assumptions, privilege, and opportunities is one of fearlessness, and often loneliness, because we become different day by day as our choices, one by one, lead us closer to who we truly aspire to be. We become different to ourselves, to our spouses, to our children, co-workers, neighbors, families of origin, and we become different from most of the rest of the world. But it is also a life of tremendous joy and fulfillment, because the closer we come to who we want to be, the more we listen to our own inner voice and not to the shouting crowds, the greater integrity we have, then the more serenity and inner peace we grow. It is a life that asks us to keep growing, keep changing our minds when we have new information, and to keep refining and multiplying the ways that our influence helps rather than hurts. It is a life that gives thought and gratitude to the fact that we were born in this time and in this place, rather than in another time or another place, wherein we might have been a slave, a gladiator, an animal that is skinned alive for its fur, a sex slave, or a migrant child crossing the border by herself. We are often very self-congratulatory about our success or our position in life, when in reality we were gifted many of the tools and opportunities and DNA that others weren't, simply by the luck of the draw and by amazing grace. Even more importantly, a life of deep inquiry eventually becomes a life that inspires others to go deeper, to be kinder, to examine attitudes and belief systems more carefully, and to be true to themselves rather than to protocol or habit or standard practice. Some days it seems that our world's problems are too big, too numerous, too embedded, too intractable. Those are the days when we choose to return to our comfortable numbness. But those days are the ones when we have temporarily forgotten about the beauty and resilience of the earth, our own tenacity and ferocity and strength, and about the enormous capacity for forgiveness that humans and animals share. It's only on the days that we lose sight of how many millions of others are working every day for change, for kindness, for insight, and for all of us. The recipe for changing direction is stated so simply by Leonard Peltier. I don't know how to change the world, he says. I don't have the answers or the answer. I hold no secret knowledge as to how to fix the mistakes of generations past and present. I only know that without compassion and respect for all of Earth's inhabitants, none of us will survive, nor will we deserve to. Those are strong words, nor will we deserve to. But he gets to the heart of the matter. It is only our attitude of entitlement, of being special, of being the most important evolution of nature that has occurred, and of thinking that someone else should give up their share so I can have mine, that has brought us to this place. We must respect the web of existence, but that requires us to protect, advocate, and work tirelessly for that web. It also requires that we as individuals earn the respect of that same web. Respect without action does not change anything. But we can take comfort and direction from this quote from the Talmud. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. And the power of one, I think, is most beautifully demonstrated in this story. There once was a wise man who used to go to the ocean to do his writing. He had a habit of walking on the beach before he began his work. One day, as he was walking along the shore, he looked down at the beach and saw a human figure moving like a dancer. He smiled to himself at the thought of someone who would dance to the day, and so he walked faster to catch up. As he got closer, he noticed that the figure was that of a young man, and that what he was doing was not dancing at all. The young man was reaching down to the shore, picking up small objects and throwing them into the ocean. He came closer still and called out, "Good morning. May I ask what you're doing?" The young man paused, looked up, and replied, "Throwing starfish into the ocean." "I must ask then, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?" asked the somewhat startled wise man. To this, the young man replied, "The sun is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them in, they'll die." Upon hearing this, the wise man commented, "But young man, do you not realize there are miles and miles of beach, and there are starfish all along every mile? You can't possibly make a difference." At this, the young man bent down, picked up yet another starfish, and threw it into the ocean. As it met the water, he said, "It made a difference to that one."
That's right. Put your books down, grab someone's hand nearby as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts as we are together again. Go in peace.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.